Adoption. That's our topic for today. Well, I was one of those children. Of the 120-something thousand that are adopted every year in this country, that's not counting what Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie adopt, or Rosie, or some of the other celebrities, just regular folks adopting kids. There's a lot of issues with adoption. Not that I'm going to go into them today, but just briefly, it used to have sort of there was something wrong with you if you were adopted. If you watch old shows, sometimes you'll see where they'll kid the youngest kid saying, well, you're not part of the family because you're adopted. Well, I never had that problem. We were told, I have a younger sibling, we were told from birth, as soon as we could understand anything, that we had been adopted. And there was a book that went with our Mother Goose and everything else. So we knew always that we'd been adopted, but the book put it in such a way that it made us feel very special because we were chosen. All those other poor people, those poor people that had babies, they were stuck with whatever they got, but I was picked. So it never bothered me that I was adopted. I thought I was special. What did I know? It's very interesting about adoption. It's not anything very new in literature or mythology. I mean, you go back all the way to Romulus and Remus of the founding of Rome. They were adopted, supposedly nursed by a wild wolf until a shepherd found them and raised them. Of course, there's always Tarzan, who was raised by the apes, but generally most people were raised by other humans. And our literature is full of it, everything from Oliver Twist with, back in Charles Dickens' day, right up to current times with Harry Potter as an orphan who's adopted by or taken care of by someone other than their own parents. And it's amazing how many superheroes are living not with their real parents, but with some either relatives or they are adopted. Spider-Man, Superman, the ultimate alien adoption. So adoption is all part of our lives. By the way, November is National Adoption Month. Now, I'm not suggesting anybody go out and adopt any child. In fact, I think there ought to be stricter regulations on who adopts a child. Frankly, I think there ought to be stricter regulations on who's allowed to have a child. But we won't go there, will we? So, why am I making this video? Well, this sort of came up last year in my own mind when I saw Juno, which was really a great film. And by the way, there are a lot of good films about adoption. Cider House Rules, for example, is a good film about an orphanage and kids that have to get adopted. There's one called December Boys, which was an Australian film with Daniel Radcliffe as the star of that one. Another interesting film I'd recommend. It's often harder for older children to get adopted. Usually newborns like this one, and as I was, are more easily adopted. Oh, and I mustn't forget the biblical adoption of all time. Of course, Moses is a classic example of being adopted right out of the river. So, identity. That is probably one of the biggest things adopted kids seem to go through. I've never had a problem wondering about who my real parents were. That was never an issue with me. I think identity is up to each individual. I do think there is an issue about, well, nature versus nurture. Nature versus nurture. It's an old argument. But for adopted kids, it might mean a little more. Who knows? But I strongly believe that basically we're born with a whole lot of things already predetermined. Eye color, hair color, height, intellect, sexual preference, a whole lot of little things that aren't really going to change no matter what. However, nurture does play a big role in either helping to facilitate skills or other items that you might have in your makeup, or to suppress them. All you have to do is see movies like Mommie Dearest to understand that. Also, there's one over in the side I've mentioned. It's Martian Child, which the child thinks he's from Mars. It's sort of a way of coping with his life. I sort of related to this movie because for a long time I thought, you know, we humans are really strange. I'm pretty sure somebody from another planet put me here to do research. And gee, I think I've done enough research so they can come get me now. Somehow they never did, or at least not yet. So we'll see, who knows. So nature and nurture, well, you both play their parts, but I think mostly nature. What you inherit is what you are. First of all, I need to make a correction. I think earlier I said my real parents, and what I meant were my biological parents, which is a whole different thing. My real parents were the people who raised me. Just want to make that clear. I don't want anybody coming down on me. When I was growing up, I was very interested in Indians, Native Americans, and so my parents had told me that I was part Indian, that in fact that I was part Comanche, which I was very excited about and very proud of, and would often brag about. So I was wondering how I could find out exactly what tribe, and along comes DNA tracking that we can do now. It's not just for the CSI people, it's for ancestry and relations and so on. And I found a company here in Florida, by the way, that, and I put it over to the side, that does track by ancestry. So I was very excited, and it also did Native American. And I thought, well, this is great. I could find out what tribe, or very close to what tribe I was from. So I sent in my DNA and waited and waited. It takes a long time, 6 weeks or so. And finally it came back. Oh my gosh, I was so excited to see what it was. You know how much I am Indian, what percentage I am? Right, zip, zero, nada. I kind of suspected this, but to see the reality of it was really disappointing and annoying. But it's okay. I still like Indians. I still like Native Americans. Just sorry that I'm not one of them. As it turns out, I'm 95% European and 5% East Asian, which means something like Chinese, as far as I can determine. Now, they also break down the 95% European as to where I come from. So if we go to the European map, we will see that 57% of me comes from this area from England and northern Germany over to the Scandinavian countries. And about, I think it is 32% comes from Greece and Turkey, with another 11% coming from the Pakistan-India area. Well, I guess you could say it's part Indian then, couldn't you? Well, this was a revelation. So what this meant to me was, instead of being this, I was probably this, because that would be the group that would be most likely to populate that northern area of the seas. Well, I wasn't disappointed, I was just sort of surprised. But it is interesting to know, and it is interesting that we can do this nowadays. Seems pretty soon we'll have the DNA of the entire planet done, and you can track down just about anybody anywhere. So, adoption. I think it's a great thing. I think more people should do it that can afford it, that are qualified to be good parents, and help give people homes. Actually, all any child really wants, outside of love, is food, clothing, and shelter, and an opportunity to become all that they can be. Adoption is one way that's possible. Food for thought. What do you think? Are you adopted? Do you know somebody that's adopted? Have a great November.